Hello, welcome to today's show, which is a case study called Matan and Money. It's a Swedish sisters Hollywood fashion success story by Jenny Lavalius. The show today is brought to you thanks to the Structure Success video training, which helps you come up with a rough outline for your own life story project. So stick around with me to the end and I'll have details about this free gift. Now today's case study, the full title is Matan and Money, the true story of two talented young Swedish women who dared to dream of fashion success in Hollywood. It's by Jenny Lavalius and it's a really adventurous read. It's a biography, so Jenny wrote it. It's a story of her mum and her mum's sister. And they went from the small time to the big time. They went from Sweden to Hollywood. And that's where they, in the 1960s to 1970s, and they started creating custom garments for celebrities. People like, I've got here Goldie Hawn, Patty Duke, Marlo Thomas, Sammy Davis Jr., Diana Ross, Sharon Tate, Anne Margaret, and many, many more. Now, I recently caught up with Jenny to find out more about her biography, and she gave us the lowdown on how this came to be, how she created the work, wrote the book, and then some tips for us as life story writers. So let's get to it. First of all, Jenny said the reason why, always important, why do you want to start a life story project? Could be a memoir, a biography like this, an autobiography or something else. But Jenny says, look, she first heard about this story when she was quite young from her mum, when she was about age 10, but it never occurred to her through growing up that she would be the one to tell it. And so she thought, no, look, I really want to do this because it needs to be documented. It's got the Hollywood glamour angle, but it's also really unique and a really inspiring story about these sisters. And she wanted to do this project, she says, for her own family, of course, her relatives, their future generations, and for the general public. So she had a really strong why and a really strong who, which is so important when you're starting a life story project. But the writing process. Now, Jenny explained to me that she initially sat down with her mum and did an interview about 12 years ago. She actually scanned a lot of images. She came up with a draft version of the book. But then, look, she had twins, didn't she? Her and her husband had twins. And as you would know, not much time when you have twins. So, as you could imagine. So she put the book project off to a later time, which is now. So she's got back to it. But she also had to put it off a little bit because she had to contact her aunt, who, lives in the US. So she was living in Sweden. Jenny was living in Sweden. Hard to catch up to do those interviews. So it did take a little bit of time. But yeah, started 12 years ago. During this process, Jenny said there was some difficulties, like any normal creative process. For her, it was images, because she was trying to track down images from the 60s and 70s. There was no internet, so she had to go trawling through clippings, and to get the licenses, to find out who owned them, and then get the licenses to reprint them in her book. So she said that was a real challenge. But there were many rewards to this biography process. She bonded with her mum, she bonded with her aunt. She says it was a real joy. In fact, she says, quote, "I feel so honoured and grateful to have been trusted with the task of sharing their story with the world." Isn't that really lovely? And that's what life stories, family stories can do. It's a real bonding, joyful experience. But moving on, the tips that Jenny had for us as life story creators. Number one, she says, find a quiet space in your house where you can focus to do your writing. She really, really recommended that. Number two, assume that tasks in this process will take longer than you expect. For her, it was the images. She took much longer than she thought. And finally, ask for help from your friends, from your family. Get their skills on board with the project if you can. Say, for example, if they're great at proofreading, if they're great at designing or marketing. And this can be really helpful if you are going out to the public, like Jenny was. You need some budget for that. So you can really save by enlisting family and friends support. So there you go. To recap, I've told you a little bit about Jenny and her writing process of this book, tips for us as life story writers. At the crux of this case story of this book that Jenny wants us to all take away is that you can see that life stories shift mindsets and inspire us to live boldly, just like her mum has done and her aunt has done in Hollywood, of all places. But you can find out more about this case study, more about this book over at my website if you go to foreveryoungautobiographies.com/Matan and Moni. I'll have the link for that in the show notes, so please click through. You can see, of course, pictures of Jenny, of her mum and her aunt, the cover of the book, where to buy the book, and links to Jenny and her website, social media. But while you're here and while you're over at the story, let me know, share, have you got a celebrity story? You know, I'd love to hear about it. There's some great ones people tell me, and I'd love for you to just drop me a line. You can do it in the comments, or if there's any questions you have about life story creating, could be planning, creating, polishing, publishing, go to foreveryoungautobiographies.com/contact. Before I go, I mentioned the free gift, the Structure Success video training. Now, this is a training I've come up with just to map out the key events, key memories of a life story so that you can put them in order for chapters. You have an outline to get through, to work towards, and get some momentum going in your project. So to get that, go to foreveryoungautobiographies.com/structure success sign up. Again, the links are here for you in the show notes and also over at that article on the website. So it's wonderful that you could join me today. I'd be really grateful if you could follow, subscribe, like the show, share it with a friend, leave it a review, and I will see you really soon. So happy writing.